there in verse 14, inasmuch as we've partaken of flesh and blood, just simply saying that we live in these human bodies and all the aches and pains and all the challenges of waking up every day in this world, that he himself likewise shared in the same, shared in humanity. And he did so that through death he might destroy him who had power of death, that is the devil. He became man just like us, and then he died for us. When he died the punishment for the punishment of sin. Satan, since the garden, has ruled over mankind. The lie to Eve, the devil said, "You will not surely die." But she ate and she died through one man. Adam ultimately responsible through one man. Sin entered the world and then death through sin. And since then, the enemy's sway over all man. Until Jesus came as a man, lived as a man, died for man. In his sinless state, he died to destroy the power of Satan over us. And then maybe even more at point of why the writer brings it up is verse 15. It's so that he could release those who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. So I would ask you from verse 15, why is fear of death something that keeps us subject to bondage or keeps us slaves to sin? It's simple. If you do something wrong and get away with it, and nobody knows about it, your guilty conscience will cause you to self-destruct. There's an alarm bell going off. You need to be punished for it. And you continue in bad behavior until you receive that punishment that you deserve. It's not until that sin is confessed and forgiven and made right that you can actually go on with a clean conscience. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 17 says, "A man burdened with bloodshed will flee into a pit. Let no one help him." But this is what the Lord did for us. He died for us so that we could be released from future judgment of death. As Christians, we don't walk around fearing the law, fearing death. Even if I break the law again, if I tell a lie, which I ought not, it's morally wrong. It's God's law. But as a Christian, I know I can confess that sin to Jesus. I can cling to him. He died for that sin, past, present, and future. And it frees me from the guilty conscience, the looming death of judgment. And I can serve the Lord freely in this world without fear that my past will one day catch up with me. Romans 7, 5-6 says, "For when we were in the flesh, the sinful passions which were aroused by the law were at work in our members to bear fruit to death. But now, having been delivered from the law, having died to what we were held by, we have so that we should serve in the newness of the Spirit, not in the oldness of the letter." Or Romans 6, 9-14, "Knowing that Christ, having been raised from the dead, dies no more, death no longer has dominion over him." And then verse 14, "For sin shall not have dominion over you anymore, for you're no longer under the law, under the demands of death of the law, but you're now under grace." When Jesus died, he set us free to serve him. And then lastly, in verses 16-18, or 15-18, we consider this wonderful help that the Lord's given us. "For indeed, he does not give aid to angels, but he does give aid to the seed of Abraham," or all those that are sons of Abraham by faith. The Lord didn't die for angels. In order to save the fallen angels, he would have had to become an angel, live with the fallen angels, like Satan and the demons, and then be killed by them and rise again to give them life. But he didn't do that for the angels. Those fallen are fallen forever. But he does give aid to us. He became one of us. He died for us, killed by us, rose again to give us life. And this is the help that he offers. Verse 17, "Therefore, in all things he had to be made like his brethren." He had to become fully human in every human way, share every human experience, so that he had to be made like his brethren, so that he might be or become a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make propitiation for the sins of the people. You see it there again, don't you? And by becoming fully human, it tells us he became merciful, that he might be merciful. Wait, I thought God was always merciful. Remember the Old Testament says that the Lord's rich in mercy and love? What do you mean he became merciful? The infinitely merciful God deepened his understanding of mercy and compassion by living what we lived. He became more merciful to us. And it's interesting, we desire that. The same truth coming from somebody who shared the experience we're suffering means more to us than somebody who's just that hasn't gone through it. It would be true to say to someone who's lost their child, the Lord loves you. Although you feel like dying, you should never have to bury your child. God will be faithful to you, and he'll get you through. Although it seems completely dark today, the Lord's going to help you through till tomorrow. Although that would be true, those same words would mean more to a grieving mother if they were shared by someone who had also lost a child. And I don't know how you're going to make it through. I know right now you can't see it. And I've lost not one, but had to see two of my babies go on to be with the Lord, one might say. And he's going to love you and be faithful to you and comfort you, and he's going to bring you through to the other side. And just having somebody who can sympathize with your weakness, having gone through it themselves, means so much. And that's why Jesus came, that he would really be able to understand what it's like, the temptation you face. Hebrews 4:15 and 16. We do not have a high priest, that's spoken in the double negative for emphasis. We do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weakness, or we have a high priest who can certainly sympathize with our weakness, because he was tempted in every point as we are, yet without sin. Jesus knows the full power of temptation that blew his way, like palm trees bending beneath the weight of hurricane winds. And one by one, they snap and fall. We've all known temptation, almost a physical ache. Like, I have to sin. I don't know if I'll live if I don't sin. Like, we have such a desire to say that angry word, to share that gossip. It's like something that has to break forth, and it's so hard holding it back. But then we've all known the eerie release of giving in. And it's like hurricane winds snapping palm tree after palm tree. And as soon as it's on the ground, it's no longer any resistance. But Jesus stood and endured temptation his whole entire life. And he knows exactly what it's like to be tempted to turn stone into bread and to satisfy fleshly desires in a way not determined by God. And he endured temptation his whole life, and then in the wilderness, and then at the cross. And he overcame it. And because he knows what it's like to be dreadfully tempted, he's able to aid those that are tempted. He's able to help you in the hour of your temptation. And he does so by his Spirit and by his word. And all of these things that he's ever said. Like, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. And Jesus didn't speak that from heaven, but after 30 plus years of living here on earth, and he lived it by experience, and he daily denied himself. And he picked up his cross and he followed the Lord. And he says, whoever seeks to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. And the one who's overcome temptation tells you that about temptation. And he's made propitiation by his blood at the end of verse 17. He's appeased the Father's wrath, and he's cleansed you. He's washed you by his blood.